distorts in all manners while the priest tries to continue his exorcism. Hannah's father tries to communicate to her, but it becomes clear that he's only speaking with the demon. Eventually, the demon lets Hannah speak to him, but that's short-lived. As the priest continues his words, the demon sits up and stops him dead in his tracks. With the power of its mind, it lifts the priest up and impales him on a crucifix behind him. When she turns her attention to the second priest that is present, the demon speaks to the father, and it tells him that his daughter belongs to it now. The father takes a pillow and smothers Hannah to stop the evil, and after he's finished smothering her, the priest falls to the ground as the father closes the eyes of Hannah. I'm going to say that if all possession movies could start off a little more like this, it might make it a little more bearable to get through them. You know how they teach you to start an essay or a story with a hook? That's it. The next hour could be terrible, but that first 5 minutes has me hoping there's more like it. After the title screen fades out, we cut to Megan Reed, who's working out with a punching bag. Once she's done, she heads to the shower, and she finds out that she got approved for a shift at a local hospital. When she gets to the hospital, she meets with Lisa for an interview, and she gets a rundown for her job specifics before meeting with Dr. Lewis. He explains that they've gone through quite a few employees in the overnight shift, but Megan assures him that she can handle all aspects of the job. On the elevator down, the doctor tries to talk about how creepy the job is, and how it can get to a person. Look, do you want someone to take the job? I get making sure they know what they're getting into, but how much do you have to try and scare someone about working with dead bodies overnight alone? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. When Dr. Lewis takes her through the routine, he explains that she never leaves the premises, even for people who are there to drop off bodies. They have to bring the bodies to her. After getting the job secured, Megan goes about the rest of her day. The next day, Megan goes for a brisk run. I say jog to put it lightly, but this woman's full-on sprinting for what looks to be miles. Her cardio's phenomenal. Not entirely sure that'll help with an evil spirit, though. When it comes time for her shift, she heads into the hospital and meets the overnight security. She meets Ernie, who sits at the desk, and she meets Dave, who tries to become her new friend. After she gets down to the morgue, Megan starts working on some of her paperwork when the lights go out. Motion sensor lights are a great way to conserve power, but who the hell would put them in a morgue? Are you trying to scare off employees? Pay the extra bit and keep the lights on. Soon after, a body gets delivered through the intake door, and things seem to be going smoothly for her first body. She goes through the normal process of signing for the body, taking photos, and fingerprinting the body. She puts the body in storage, and she's done with that one.
Hey.
Dave here knew the assignment. Every horror movie needs a Dave that's trying to be the sweet guy to get the girl, but he's really actually giving her a heart attack instead. After Megan escorts Dave out, she sits at her desk and starts to get a little bored with the lonely night. After going to the bathroom, she comes out to see a ghost from her past standing in the hallway haunting her. We find out that she was a cop, but she messed up when she failed to shoot a perp that ended up killing her partner. She goes to take some meds to help her, but then she decides against it. After she goes to some group therapy, Megan goes home to sleep, but she's woken up later by a police officer that also turns out to be her ex. He stops by to pick up his stuff, and she mentions the job at the morgue. His visit starts to turn into an argument, and once he realizes that, he says goodbye and leaves. That night on her shift, Megan ends up getting another delivery, but this time, no one's waiting at the door for her. She tries to look around before opening the door, and she gets surprised by a man that tries to talk her into letting him in. She refuses, and she hops in the elevator while he bangs on the door. As she calls the security to report the homeless man, she notices an ambulance is there to drop off another body. When she goes down to meet him, he talks her into coming outside to help him get the body out of the ambulance. All you have to do is follow the rules. It isn't that hard. She even notices that she probably should have followed the rules when she sees the elevator close on its own while they roll the body in. After they get the body inside, she reads the chart and finds out that the body is Hannah Grace. When they pull down the bag, she starts to investigate the body, and she can hear screams of victims in her mind. As she goes about the usual procedures, things just seem to go wrong. The power shorts out on the camera that's used to photograph the bodies, and it eventually shocks her when she tries to bring it closer to Hannah's head. When Megan tries to upload the fingerprints, the system does the same thing. When she goes to put the body in storage, the entire facility seems to tremble like an earthquake's going on. They're in Boston. When vials shake and fall off the counter, it's time to figure something else out. To top off all the common sense going around here, Megan gets cut through her glove by the vials. Does she get another glove to finish putting Hannah away? No, she just bunches it up and pushes the body in. I never said this was a smart horror movie, it was just a great hook. After she goes back to her desk, Megan takes the report on Hannah, logs into the database as her ex, and looks up personal info on Hannah's case. Yes, that's very illegal, for those of you that are mumbling it under your breath. When she goes back to the body, she notices that the eyes don't match the description. I'm sorry, she doesn't quit right there. She turns back to Hannah to see if it was all a hallucination, and goes on about her night. Yeah, I would have walked out right there. You can make money anywhere now. Fast food is paying $17 an hour in America right now. Flip burgers or get swarmed by a possessed corpse. After Megan changes into some personal clothes, she thinks she hears Dave banging around the facility. But when she calls out for him, she doesn't get an answer. She does see that Hannah's body is no longer in storage and being dragged away around the corner. When Megan goes to follow, she's ambushed by the homeless man. But he doesn't know that she's had combat training. She kicks him off, grabs the knife, and goes after him. After calling security, she follows the sounds of the man until she comes to the crematorium. She tries to talk to him, but security barges in and makes that impossible. After they arrest him, Megan hears him call out that they have to destroy Hannah's body. Megan does the complete opposite and puts the body back in storage. Granted, it's her job, but when you put a body back in storage and it opens the door back up on its own, it might be time to listen to the creepy old man. Megan pulls the body out again. She gets a phone call that makes her turn her attention away from the body, but when she turns back, her head is facing her. She quickly pushes Hannah back into storage, and she heads out of the room. Suddenly, she's surprised by her friend Lisa, who comes down to check on her well-being. She assures her that she's okay with the job, but she's just a little freaked out by Hannah. Dave ends up showing up to tell Megan that there's an officer on the ground floor that wants to talk to her. He offers to cover for her, and she heads upstairs to meet him. Meanwhile, Hannah's storage door pops open, and a fly flies out of it. When Megan gets upstairs, she finds her ex waiting for her, and he immediately asks if she's okay. He doesn't have any information on who the assailant is yet, but he's more surprised that she's going to be staying for the rest of her shift. He throws all caution to the wind when he mentions that he's missing a bottle of Xanax from his things, and Megan immediately gets defensive. She can't really get all that mad at him. She obviously had a problem. She was obviously just in a very stressful situation, and if anyone knows how she would respond, it might be the ex that doesn't seem like he's just a complete ass. Not to mention we saw her with a bottle earlier that she ended up putting down after thinking about it. Maybe everything with Hannah's just an illusion. He does offer to do anything for her if she needs it, and she does think of one thing. She goes back down to her office to get Hannah's information, and she finds Dave's down there playing baseball by himself. When Megan goes back to her ex to give him the information, Dave wanders around the morgue to follow a suspicious sound. When he comes to the storage room, he hears scraping coming from behind one of the doors. When he opens the door, he's grabbed by a pair of hands that end up throwing him across the room before contorting his body through some telepathic powers that end up dropping him on the tray that traps him in the storage unit. After the door closes, we hear a crack, and the entire morgue is silent until Megan comes looking for him. Megan ends up going to the bathroom to do her business, and she texts her ex to thank him for helping her and apologizes for being so short with him earlier. When she gets ready to get up, she hears someone else is in the bathroom with her. Well, it's a good thing she's already on there with her pants down. I would have lost control right then and there, guaranteed. When she gets out of the bathroom, she gets a call from her ex who says that Hannah's actually been dead for about 3 months, and these prints had to have come from someone else. Megan goes to investigate Hannah's death online, and she sees testimony from the church. When she goes to check the body again, she notices markings on her that don't make any sense. After she leaves the autopsy room again, she notices the security camera that points to the bathroom, and she goes to get access from Ernie. Once she logs in, she notices that the motion sensor light gets tripped by something, and it freaks her out enough to go to her bag for the bottle of pills. Is this the Xanax she got accused of stealing earlier? Was he so wrong for questioning her earlier? Why was the shadow of a blob enough to make her start popping pills, but the actual physical grimy arm wasn't enough to scare the pants off her? And her pants were already off! These are important questions! Megan goes to tell Lisa about what she saw, and Lisa comes down to the morgue with her. When Lisa sees the footage, she also notices the pills, and she immediately thinks that Megan's brain is trying to come up with a reason to start using again. After Megan swears that she didn't take any, Lisa tells her that she trusts her, and she heads up into the stairway to smoke. Once there, blood drips down on her hand, and when she looks up, she sees Dave looking down to her. After Lisa goes up the stairs to find Dave, she ends up finding his lifeless body being held up in the corner, and a being crawls out of the shadows and chases her to the roof. She ends up being held up by an unseen power, and we see Hannah's body creaking closer as Lisa dies. Meanwhile, Megan gets another delivery from the man that dropped off Hannah's body, and he asks for help again. This time, she's downright adamant that she won't be repeating that mistake. When she brings him inside to look at how Hannah's body seems to be healing itself, he verifies that something weird's going on.
Why are you working the night shift at a morgue?
Precisely! He means it in the nice way that she's too smart and resourceful for this work, but I mean it in the way of this is a terrible job for an addict with a crippling backstory. After the EMT leaves, Megan calls her ex to admit that she didn't pack his Xanax with the rest of his things, and she's...
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my god, evacuate the hospital already! Megan turns around and notices that the elevator is going down on its own, but she continues on her way. Meanwhile, the EMT is leaving the intake bay, but he doesn't get far before feeling a thud on top of the ambulance. When he goes to check it out, we can hear Hannah creaking around the parking garage. He spots her the same time that Megan spots her on the camera footage. When Megan comes down to the intake bay, she finds his lifeless body. Then she gets a call from her ex, who says that the man that broke in before just killed the 2 officers that were transporting him. And just then, the man shows up and forces Megan inside at gunpoint. Once they get to Hannah's body, he explains that he's her father, and he tells her exactly what happened with the possession. As they go to burn the body, Hannah comes to life again and burns her father in the incinerator. When Hannah turns her attention to Megan, she tries to get away as quickly as she can. Finally, the ex shows up, and I can honestly say that he's an awesome boyfriend, and he better not leave after this again. I don't think Megan's gonna be okay after seeing all of this. The ex makes his way into the morgue just in time to stop Hannah on top of Megan. As he searches the morgue for her, Megan comes to inside of one of the body storage lockers. As she looks side to side, she finds the bodies of Lisa and Dave have been stashed there as well. Eventually, Megan kicks her way free, and her ex and Ernie come to check on her. As they all spot Hannah, the morgue goes into lockdown. Hannah ends up slicing Ernie's throat, and she uses her powers on the ex. As he hangs in the air, Megan grabs his gun and unloads half a clip in Hannah. After Hannah lies on the ground dead, Megan calls the elevator for her ex, and she goes back to the body to finish the job. At least she was smart enough to get the one person that can back up her story out of there. Because as soon as she starts to roll Hannah into the incinerator, Hannah comes to life and grabs hold for dear life. It doesn't work, but at least she played it safer than she has in most of the movie. After things go silent, Megan goes back to the hallway to play with a rubber band ball. And police officers arrive to check the scene. After some time passes, Megan seems to have a better hold on her life. But she also doesn't seem to have forgotten what happened to her in the morgue. Then, the credits roll.